The raven alighted on the windowsill of the Tower of the Hand as dawn seeped pale and hesitant across the eastern sky. Its wings stained the color of old iron. Ser Kevin brushed a drift of straw from its leg, frowning at the seal impressed upon the scroll. A crimson lion over a winter field of white. The message had come from the twins at first light, flown under sigil of House Fry but ridden hard south by every postmaster on the King's Road until it found its way to Casterly Rock. Now it lay in Tywin Lannister's gloved hand, a blade of parchment that might cut more cleanly than Valyrian steel. Tywin dismissed his brother without a word and unfurled the scroll. 5 scant lines, each one lethal. Robb Stark is stalled outside the crag. His bannermen quarrel over succession. Edmure is captured. Bolton whispers of retreat. Fry awaits redress. The Wolf's Council phrase like an old cloak. The words stank of opportunity. Tywin's mind, honed on decades of war and profit, moved faster than the heartbeat of a hummingbird. While lesser men would celebrate the enemy's weakness, he searched instead for leverage, something sharper than swords, subtler than hosts of men. Across the sea of oak and golden candlelight, Cersei lounged in the cushioned window seat, her green eyes fixed on the dark plain below the rock where the sea crashed in muted thunder. She wore morning black trimmed with cloth of gold, a lioness pacing the bars of her cage. She looked up when the parchment whispered closed. Bad news. Tywin regarded his daughter the way a mason studies a block of marble, not for what it is but what it might become beneath a skilled chisel. Not bad, merely unfinished. Cersei's laughter was brittle. Unfinished is better than undone. Joffrey sits the throne, yet half the realm hunts his head. Stannis smolders on Dragonstone, Robb Stark sits king in the north, and Renly's ghost still haunts his ranks. You call this unfinished?
Ido, Tywin replied, unmoved.
Because endings can be written anew. He paced toward the crackling hearth. The lion heads wrought into his pauldrons gleamed as the flames licked across them. Robb's strength is pride, and pride is just another collar. Slip it round his neck, and he'll heal. Cersei rose, gown whispering behind her. You have hosts enough to crush him. Why entertain collars at all? A victory by sword alone bleeds gold for a generation, and men forget the taste of fear. Marriages forge heavier chains. Consider Harrenhal, stone melted and bones charred, yet the Riverlands rebel with every spring. But the Reach has not challenged Highgarden's roses since Aegon wed his sister to a Tyrell. Cersei's brows lifted in feline query. And whose hand would bear that chain? Joffrey is betrothed to the Tyrell chit. Tywin's silence said what he would not. Joffrey, volatile, vindictive, could never be risked to foster peace with the North. Then the realization dawned in Cersei's eyes like stormfire on the far horizon. You would marry me, she hissed, to that wolf pup from Winterfell? Robb Stark is no pup, Tywin countered, voice iron smooth. He is a king whose sword songs stir every northern heart south of the wall. He commands legions loyal unto death. Place a Lannister queen at his side and those swords turn shield. One son from such a union binds winter to gold forever. Cersei's shoulders stiffened. I am not some brood mare to barter. I carry the king's heirs. You carry Joffrey's claim, nothing more, Tywin cut in. And no small folk bard will sing of incest whispered behind closed doors if you birth a Stark's whelp instead. The realm cares for peace, not purity. A spark of rage glittered in her gaze, but beneath it stirred calculation. She had borne Robert's fists and Robert's whores, yet for all her venom she had learned to survive in a court where mercy was weakness. Alliances were a woman's daggers, and this alliance would slice deep enough to sever kingdoms. He will rebel, she murmured. Robb will name it insult. Tywin's smile was thinner than a razor's edge. My ravens carry more than parchment. They carry promise. We offer the North self-rule beneath the Iron Throne. The bones of Ned Stark returned, and the heads of every Fry who dared mock their honor at the twins. He need only sheathe his sword, and sheath himself within you. Disgust rippled across her face, yet beneath it flickered another light, ambition's hungry flame. Queen of the North, The title rang like distant bells over a frozen river, beautiful and terrible. She turned to the window where dawn now painted the waves in blood and gold bands. "And if I refuse, then you may watch from this tower as the realm burns," Tywin answered, stern and final. "Stannis gathers fleets. The Tyrells fatten on our coffers. Riverrun bleeds the riverlands dry. Peace is profit, and profit ensures survival." He stepped closer, resting a gauntlet hand upon her sleeve. It felt like the yoke settling on an ox. "Cersei, you have ever been my fiercest cub. Show your cubs how peace is won." In the hush that followed, the waves hammered stone as if a smith forged the future below. Cersei closed her eyes, tasting salt and ash on her tongue. She thought of Joffrey's cruel laughter, of Myrcella's ship to Dorne, of Tommen's timid smile that trembled whenever doors slammed too loudly. Then she thought of Robb Stark, honor-bound, stern, righteous. A boy, yes, but no drunken brute. In another world, perhaps a worthy match. "I will do it," she said at last. The words dragged sharp from her throat. "For our house, for my children," and perhaps she wondered for herself. Robb Stark stood beneath the dripping boughs of the gods' wood at Riverrun, gray cloak soaked dark with mist. The red leaves whispered like dying embers overhead. He had come seeking solitude, yet 6 steps behind him padded gray wind, silent except for the rustle of paw through wet moss. The direwolf's yellow eyes reflected torch flame from the castle windows, wary and restless. As Robb knelt before the heart tree, the wolf circled once, then settled beside him, muzzle resting on one massive paw. "Your Grace." Robb did not turn at the voice. He knew Lord Bolton's measured cadence, soft as leather gloved in silk. "Speak, my lord." "Ravens from the south." Roose Bolton ghosted forward, parchment clasped in pale fingers. "From Casterly Rock, and from King's Landing alike." Robb rose, rain streaming down his mail. He took the scroll bearing a crimson lion, eyebrow arching at the broken wax. "You read my mail now?" Bolton's lips barely curved. "A letter unvetted may carry daggers sharper than Valyrian steel." Robb broke the seal again, symbolic, futile, and scanned the lines. His pulse slowed, each word a stone dropped into deep water. An end to hostilities, reparations for the slain, lands south of Moat Cailin ceded in perpetuity, and at the bottom, in Tywin's stark, slanted hand, one bride golden as autumn wheat, to stand by the king in the north until the snows melt and melt again. Cersei Lannister, widow of Robert Baratheon, mother of Joffrey the Boy King, sister to the Kingslayer. She had been carved in the songs as proud and poisonous, but also clever, quick as wildfire, and as dangerous. Robb's breath showed in white puffs. Beside him gray wind growled low, sensing his disquiet. Bolton watched him with calm, colorless eyes. "A bold stroke, your grace. With one blade Tywin would cut the war's throat." Robb folded the letter. "Would you have me take her to wife?" "I would have you weigh the dead yet to come against the dead already lost," Bolton replied. "Your bannermen clamor for victory, but they bicker over whose daughter will wear your crown. The Freys demand recompense for your broken troth. The Karstarks nurse vengeance for their fallen. A royal lioness may quell such discord." Robb's jaw tightened. "Or ignite it. At times," Bolton said softly, "one must choose which fire will spread slowest." Robb dismissed him with a curt nod. Alone once more, he stared up through the red canopy. Summer waned, autumn's chill gnawed. His mother's voice echoed. A marriage may make peace where swords could not. And yet Catelyn had been taken, traded like spoils, to King's Landing and back again. Now she lay captive in the Twins, her fate a coin in Lord Bolton's pocket. If this union freed her, spared his men, spared Winter's children from endless fields of butchered youth, could he refuse? The direwolf's muzzle nudged his hand. Robb ruffled the wet fur between Grey Wind's ears, whispering, "Would you trust a southern lion?" Grey Wind's only answer was a low whine. Ser Jaime Lannister grinned beneath the yellow lanterns of the Rosewater Hall. where tents of green and gold flapped in the warm evening wind. The Tyrell feast sprawled across trestle tables, perfumed with cinnamon and roast swan. For a man who had spent moons caged in iron and filth, the taste of freedom and honeyed wine was sharper than any blade. He drained his flagon, wiped foam with the back of his hand, and eyed the girl seated beside his Uncle Kevin. A slip of a thing with red gold curls and hazel eyes too old for 15. "My niece," Kevin murmured, following Jaime's gaze. "Falai's younger daughter, Mirielle, quiet as a dormouse." Jaime smirked. "Then she will find the court a wolf pit. Dormice seldom fare well." He leaned back, surveying the Tyrell knights gambling over lemon cakes and the girls dancing with garlands in their hair. Highgarden brimmed with life, yet his sister was not here. Cersei remained at Casterly Rock, or so word held, awaiting some matter of court diplomacy. A flicker of unease stirred his mind, swiftly drowned in wine. Across the pavilion, Lord Tyrell bent low over a map, conferring with Mace, Olenna, and the Florence. War, even at fate, still whispered like a blade beneath silk. Jaime's fingers twitched for his sword, but his stump ached where hand once was. Pain reminded him of the debt he owed. Robb Stark had carved glory from Lannister hides. Death had answered death. Yet rumors rode faster than ravens. The young wolf had halted his march, ensconced at Riverrun. Why? Jaime's brow furrowed. Then the trumpets of Highgarden blared thrice, and silence rippled across the feast. Lord Tyrell straightened. "My lords and ladies, tidings from King's Landing." A herald in the king's colors stepped forward, scroll in trembling hand. "By decree of His Grace Joffrey of Houses Baratheon and Lannister, first of his name, protector of the realm. Let it be known that to ensure the lasting peace of Westeros, Her Grace Queen Dowager Cersei of House Lannister shall take to husband Robb Stark, King in the North, Lord of Winterfell, upon the morrow of the first frost following the harvest moon. All blood debts between houses Lannister and Stark shall thereby be forgiven under the light of the Seven. May the Mother bless their union." The words crashed over the pavilion like storm waves. Gasps, shouts, curses rose in chorus. Jaime's blood ran colder than any winter wind. Cersei, wed to a Stark? Rage surged, hot enough to sear away the wine's haze. He shoved from the table, half staggering through baffled courtiers, and seized the herald by his collar before knights could intervene. "What farce is this?" he snarled. "Where are these tidings written?" The herald paled. "Sire, the Lord Tywin's personal seal." Jaime's mind reeled. His father, the rock upon whom Lion's Gate stood, had sold Cersei like any chattel? No. Never like any chattel. Tywin never bartered without profit. And if Cersei agreed, it meant she saw profit too. Olenna Tyrell's voice cut across the tension, crisp as sunset air. "Well, that is a marriage few will see coming, but many will see ending in daggers. Best set aside funds for the funeral feast." Laughter rippled at her wit, but Jaime heard the steel in it. The realm would not stand easy beneath such a union. He released the herald, backing away. In his breast rose twin storms of fury and fear. If Cersei chained herself to a wolf, what would become of her cubs? Of him? Of them? He needed answers, and only his father held the key. The ferry across the Red Fork rocked, each oarstroke slapping water black under nightfall. Catelyn Stark, freed at last by Tywin's command yet flanked by Lannister guards, felt chains heavier than iron. Gratitude, suspicion, dread. Word of the proposed match had reached her ears within hours. She had begged Robb to refuse, even as she rode south to treat with the Kingslayer. But her son had spoken little, eyes iced over with the weight of kingship. Now torches gleamed on the far bank, where Lord Tywin's encampment sprawled like a silent army. Catelyn clutched her cloak tighter. The night smelt of wood smoke and winter-killed grass. Above, a sickle moon carved the sky. As she set foot on Lannister soil, Ser Adam Marbrand greeted her with a shallow bow. "Lady Stark, the Hand bids you join him at council." "I am no envoy," she answered coldly. "Merely a mother come to beg terms for her children." Kings and mothers alike bargain with the same coin, Marbrand replied. Come. They led her through tents to a pavilion hung with crimson banners. Inside, Tywin sat alone before a table strewn with ledgers, maps, a jeweled inkwell, a half-finished goblet of arbor red. He rose. Though not tall, his presence towered like the rock. Lady Stark, you are welcome. Catelyn's jaw clenched. You hold my daughters. I do. Tywin gestured to a chair. And I would see them wed to lordlings of suitable station, once peace is sown. But first, we must plant the seed. Catelyn sank into the offered seat, spine rigid. A marriage of my son to your daughter is no seed but a trap baited with winter's honor. Tywin steepled his fingers. It is a sword sheathed in silk, both edges cut, yet neither hand bleeds. The tent flaps stirred. Cersei entered, cloaked in midnight velvet, her hair piled in a golden crown. She nodded once to Catelyn, then crossed to stand at her father's flank. They looked so alike in that moment. Two lions carved from the same unforgiving stone. Catelyn's heart hammered. Memories flashed of Bran's fall, of Lannister daggers, of Ned's head upon a spike. She tasted bile. Yet before her stood a woman who offered not an apology but an uneasy alliance. For the sake of sons and the last fragile shreds of hope, Catelyn forced her voice steady. Peace demands trust. Trust, Cersei murmured, is minted only from need. You need your daughters. I need my throne secured from Stannis and the Tyrells. Your son needs his kingdom unburnt. My father needs the realm solvent. All needs drive us to this table. Catelyn's eyes glistened. She thought of Sansa's gentle laughter, of Arya's wolfish grin, of Rickon's chubby fists. And if Robb refuses? Then the war drags into winter, Tywin said. And winter starves north and south alike. The Iron Bank will call its debts. The Tyrells will crown Marjorie a widow queen beside Joffrey's coffin. Stannis will sweep the crownlands in righteous flame. You will bury your remaining children in shallow frozen graves. He leaned forward. Choose peace, Lady Stark. Choose bloodlines over bloodshed. Catelyn bowed her head. Choices had already cost her dearly. Bran broken, Ned slain, rivers red with northern men. Perhaps no choice remained but this. She wiped a tear with trembling fingers. You will grant Robb full sovereignty in the north? Tywin inclined his head. In all things save fealty, the north will kneel to the Iron Throne, but no Lannister host shall set foot past Moat Cailin without invitation. Taxes will be halved for 7 years, and we will rebuild Winterfell at our expense. Catelyn breathed out slowly. The offer glittered like frost, cold, beautiful, lethal. Yet what other road lay open? She rose. I will deliver your terms. Whether the North bends will be for my son to decide. Cersei's gaze softened a fraction. Should he accept, I would have a sister in you, Lady Stark. Perhaps we might teach the realm something of mother's mercy. Catelyn met her eyes. Behind emerald brilliance, she glimpsed a woman cornered, claws drawn not for conquest but for survival. Or mother's vengeance, she whispered. Cersei's lips curved. Two faces of the same coin. The Raven arrived at Riverrun on the crest of dawn 5 days later. Across the yard, banners drooped under thickening clouds. Winter's breath drew nearer. Robb's council gathered in the great hall, a chorus of northern lords, each bearing scars and grudges. Roose Bolton stood cool beside the hearth, flanked by his bastard Ramsay, whose smile never reached his pale eyes. Great John Umber thumped a mace-like fist upon the map table, demanding to march. Lord Karstark glowered, white beard wagging as he muttered of debt and traitors. Robb raised a hand for silence. My lords, Lord Tywin offers peace bound by marriage. I would have your counsel. Great John roared. The wolf does not bed the lion. Lannister treachery wears gowns of silk. Aye, but it stinks of blood all the same. Murmurs of agreement rose. Bolton's voice slid in like an oiled dagger. Was it treachery when we bent the knee to Aegon, or pragmatism? Fire melted northern steel, yet Luna knew for centuries of quiet. He inclined his head. Your grace alone must weigh the worth of pride. Karstark spat. Worth less than vengeance? For every Karstark son dead upon these Southron fields, I would see golden cubs dashed upon stone. Robb's jaw tightened. And what of the living? Shall they be dashed as well? The hall quieted. Finally Edmure Tully limped forward, freshly freed and gaunt. I have known Cersei from Robert's court. She is cunning, yes, but fiercely protective of her own. If she binds herself to Robb, she binds her children's future to his throne in the north and remains a bridge to King's Landing. It may hold. Robb turned to his mother beside the dais. Catelyn's eyes shimmered with grief and hope entwined. I have seen death enough, she said. Let us at least taste the peace we claim to fight for. Grey wind padded to Robb's side, ears pricked. Robb laid a hand upon the direwolf's ruff. Mountains of fate loomed on every side. To choose alliance with the house that slaughtered his father, could any honor survive? Yet honor posthumous served no bannerman bread, no child safe haven. He lifted his gaze, steady as the heart trees. Summon the ravens. Tell Lord Tywin Lannister that the king in the north will take the Queen Dowager to wife at the first full moon of autumn, beneath the boughs of Riverrun's godswood. And let every man who calls me Oathbreaker remember, I break no oaths to peace. Autumn's first full moon rose fat and amber above the tumbling river. Lanterns lined the castle walls like 1,000 captive stars. Lords and ladies flocked from every corner of the realm. Reluctant Freys, sullen Karstarks, perfumed Tyrell envoys, even dour sisters men of White Harbor, each eager to witness history or calamity. In the Godswood, beneath the heart tree's crimson canopy, barrels of summer wine glimmered and benches of white oak formed an aisle strewn with pine needles. Septons murmured prayers while silent sisters wound garlands of twilight roses about the weirwood's bone-white limbs. Cersei approached in a gown the hue of evening embers, lionwork filigree curving across her bodice. Her hair, loose for the first time since Robert's funeral, fell like hammered gold about her shoulders. She walked unflinching between rows of northerners who glared as though she carried wildfire at her breast. Tywin paced beside, face unreadable, cloak dragging like a tidal surge of crimson. Robb awaited in wolf-gray doublet, sword P. Seakeeper belted at his hip in place of battle steel. Grey wind prowled at the edge of the clearing, hackles raised yet leashed by the king's will. The direwolf's eyes glowed in lantern light, mirroring the ember flare in Cersei's own when their gazes met for the first time. A hush fell as the Septon lifted his voice beneath the moon. He spoke of seven and old gods both, binding south and north in words older than kingdom or crown. He wound silk of white and crimson round their joined hands, ice and fire entwined. Cersei's fingers were cool. Robb's palm trembled once, then steadied. The vows spilled like new-birthed rivers over barren earth, carving channels where grudges might one day bloom into green. When the Septon bade them seal their union, Cersei tipped her face up, lips parting. Robb bent, tasting Dornish arbor on her breath and something sharper. Resolve. Applause erupted. Mace hafts on shields, palms on benches. Yet beneath the thunder lurked murmurs of doubt as cold as the river's depths. Tywin watched his plans first bud unfurl. His eyes, hard as garnet, flicked from queen to king to wolf. He beheld not a marriage but a fortress of living flesh and shared heirs, an edifice to outlast swords. Whether the stones would hold or crack, only time's relentless tide would tell. Days later, ravens bearing the news startled coops from Sunspear to White Harbor. Some wings carried dread. Stannis cursed the capitulation, vowing flame-washed justice. The Tyrells seethed, seeing their queenly ambitions burned to ash. In Dorne, Prince Doran read the missive thrice, measuring consequences like a maester weighing poisons. Across the narrow sea, a silver-haired exile in Qarth traced lion and wolf upon parchment and wondered if Westeros had finally remembered to roar with one voice. In Riverrun's high northern chambers, Cersei and Robb dined on trout and berry wine, a table long enough for starfaring. They spoke little, each appraising the other as generals gauge enemy lines. Yet as the moon climbed, Robb set aside his knife. "When honor is gone," he said softly, "only trust may fill its place. I would have us begin there." Cersei sipped, eyes gleaming over the rim of her cup. "Trust is earned, Your Grace. Then let us earn it." He leaned forward, shoulders broad beneath his wolfskin mantle. "The battles yet to come will test this alliance. Stannis, the Greyjoys, perhaps the Tyrells. If we stand divided, we fall." Cersei's laugh was low. "You sound like my father." Robb's lips quirked. "When the cub mimics the lion's roar, the forest listens." A flicker of surprise touched her gaze. Then, slowly, she smiled. It was not the smile of a queen triumphant, but of a woman seeing, perhaps for the first time, the shape of a different future. Outside, gray wind howled up at the harvest moon. The cry echoed through the still night like a vow sworn by blood and bone. Beyond castle walls, in the shadowed groves where loyal men dared whisper treason, Ramsay Snow sharpened a curved knife. Sparks danced with falling leaves. "A lioness in the north," he mused to his pale father. "Shall we send her a winter's welcome?" Roose Bolton's eyes were two chips of dirty ice. "Patience. Knives unsheathed too soon find only flesh unready. We will watch, wait, and when peace lulls them to sleep, then we shall see how quiet a lion can be when its throat is cut." Rain began to fall, soft as ash, carrying on its tongue the promise of snow. The war had ended, the lords would claim, yet in every dark corner of Westeros, men sharpened steel and counted grudges like coins. Life for life, blood for blood. And in the halls of Riverrun, a wolf and a lion learned the first uncertain steps of a dance written in prophecy and fear. Far to the east, as wheat bent beneath the breath of autumn, a dragon awoke from slumber, sensing tremors across the sea. The shifting of powers long settled. The scream split the sky, and the world shivered. Alliances were but threads, fragile and flammable, and winter would come to test each knot. So began the marriage that would shape an age, born of desperation, sealed in frost, tempered in blood. Whether the forge of war would weld wolf and lion into steel unbreakable, or crack them to ruin, no maester's chronicle could yet foretell. But in the quiet hours before dawn, when the first flakes of snow kissed Riverrun's ramparts, Cersei Lannister lay awake beside the king in the north, and for the first time in many seasons she did not dream of ashes, but of pawprints and golden cubs racing across fields of silent white. Robb Stark rose before the sun. Long before dawn silvered the pools beneath Riverrun's curtain walls. Frost filmed every stone, glinting cold diamonds in the torchlight as he strode the battlements with gray wind pacing noiselessly at his heel. He had not slept. Sleep could not be coaxed from a mind knotted by council quarrels, by his mother's anxious smile, by the strange new weight of a lioness's breath against his shoulder in the dark. Cersei slept lightly but deeply, a cat that dozed with ears forever pricked. Each time Robb turned, she seemed to sense him stir, though she never spoke. A breeze smelling of river muck and distant pine plucked at the wolfskin draped about his shoulders. Somewhere beyond the ink-black horizon Stannis' galleys rode the narrow sea, and the Tyrell banners stirred with unease in Highgarden-scented bowers, and north of Moat Cailin ironmen tested every inlet for weakness. Peace, the Septon had called it, yet peace felt like standing on a frozen lake, listening for the first spiderweb cracks beneath one's boots. Boots crunched behind him. He did not turn. He knew the cadence. "Uncle!" Lord Edmure drew abreast, rubbing mittened palms for warmth. The Tully trout on his cloak shimmered like a pale ghost in the torch glow. "Gray morning for a night of vows. Could you not find your bed?" Robb's mouth twitched. "My bed is full of southern politics." Edmure chuckled, then grew sober. "Is she kind?" Robb thought of green eyes studying him across wine, of measured courtesy, of the careful way she set a goblet exactly at the plate's edge, as though every motion must balance two kingdoms atop that rim. "She is wary, wary enough to survive. Wary is wise in lions." Edmure leaned on the crenel. "I was wary of my Roslyn once. Now I thank the Seven every night for her soft snore. Give it time. Time." Robb wondered how much remained. He glanced up as ravens rode the paling sky, scouts of dawn. "Has word come from White Harbor?" "Aye." Edmure handed him a damp-sealed note. Robb broke it. Maester Theomore's crabbed hand unfolded with the crackle of cold parchment. Wyman Manderly pledged ships and silver for any venture that spared his harbor Stannis' ire. He would toast the queen but knelt only to the north, and the Iron Throne last and least. Robb smiled thinly. Politics, indeed. Behind them the keep's windows gilded as torches inside sprang to life. Cersei would rise soon. With her rose an entire day of council sessions Tywin had decreed. "I must dress." Edmure clapped his nephew's shoulder. "Come fishing with me at dusk. Trout bite sweetest under sunset." "I'll try." Robb whistled Grey Wind to heel and descended the winding stair. Cersei Lannister let her women fuss with her hair in silence, watching through the frosted casement as snowflakes drifted lazy spirals into the courtyard. A southern girl might have found them charming. Cersei felt only foreboding. Snow so soon, for the Reach it would be wonder. For King's Landing it would be disaster. For the North it was little more than a greeting. She would need to learn this land's languages. The crunch of hoarfrost, the hush of pine forests, the subtle flinch in a bannerman's eye when he saw golden curls at his king's side. Tina Merriweather pulled the last golden coil across her crown braid, pinning it with a tiny ruby wolf's head. "The jewelers worked half the night," she said. Cersei examined her reflection in the polished bronze. The wolf gem glared back at her, crimson on gold. "It looks like an open wound. A sign the wolf and lion bleed as one?" Tina offered. Cersei felt a flash of something, wry amusement perhaps. "Let us hope neither bleeds again for many moons." She rose, smoothed a gown of thick pewter wool lined with lamb fur, practical yet regal. Gold thread embroidered a scaled pattern like overlapping shields around the waist. A Lannister compromise for a northern dress. Tina handed her doeskin gloves. "The king waits in the godswood." "He does." Cersei flexed her fingers. The gloves were a shade darker than her eyes. "And the realm waits for us both." When she stepped into the hallway, Lannister guards fell in. 2 northern spearmen joined them, stiff as pikes. They eyed one another with the distrust of hounds forced to share a leash. Good, she thought. Let them watch each other. Their watchfulness would keep her alive. Down spiral stairs whose chill breathed through mortar, across a covered bridge, through a courtyard where lads wielded practiced swords under a graybeard master-at-arms, and into the godswood proper. The heart tree's red leaves whispered secrets to the wind. Robb stood beneath them, speaking with his mother. Robb in storm-gray wool and muted silver clasps, Catelyn in dark blue. A tableau of calm, yet both turned as she approached, as though her steps rang louder than snow. Robb bowed his head. "My queen." Cersei inclined hers. "Your grace." Titles tasted foreign still, though she wore them as easily as armor. She greeted Lady Stark with equal poise. The older woman's courtesy was flawless, but grief clouded her gaze whenever she looked upon Cersei, as if some memory of Ned hovered between them. Maester Vyman waited with scrolls. "If you please, your graces?" The matters of Fry recompense topped the docket. Cersei's smile was knife-thin. "Yes. Let us begin repaying blood with silver." Robb's jaw hardened. He gestured toward an oaken bench beneath the weirwood. "We'll hear all claims in turn." They sat side by side. Their knees brushed through heavy cloth, an accidental touch that felt like sparring, testing distance. Lords arrayed before them. Ryman Fry with his worm-tongued steward, Lord Karstark scowling beside dour men in sable, Ser Hosteen Fry with a bandaged arm, Rickard Risswell, Galbart Glover. Tywin's envoys stood separate to one side, led by Astapor Heatherspoon, a name so ridiculous Cersei had snickered when first hearing it. The Maester read grievances. The phrase demanded twice the original dowry Roslin had been promised for Robb's first, broken betrothal. Lord Karstark demanded the heads of the Fry archers who slew his sons. The Risswells demanded grazing rights along the Green Fork. The Glovers asked compensation for Deepwood Mott's burnings. Each claim, Robb answered in measured voice. Each demand, he weighed with fresh quills of promise and IOUs signed Robb Stark, king in the north and Cersei of houses Lannister, Stark, and Baratheon, queen. Hours passed. Snow accumulated on shoulders, melted, dampened cloaks. Cersei's fingers numbed even through her gloves, yet she refused a brazier. Let them see a lioness could withstand their winter. Robb's breath steamed, beard catching crystals of frost. Whenever a lord grew heated, Karstark, most often, Robb quelled him with a glance of gray eyes that seemed carved of ice. He is colder than Jaime once jested, Cersei mused, and for the first time wondered if her brother's japes had hidden grudging respect. By midday the council adjourned. As lords filed away, Cersei drew Robb aside. You do not grant Karstark his justice. He will never forgive lion blood for wolf blood. I know. Robb brushed snow off his sleeve. But I cannot hand him Frey prisoners before the marriage gift is delivered. We need both houses held in check. Cersei considered him. Your lords love vengeance more than peace. Can you hold them? A ghost of a smile. Can you hold yours? The city whisperers, the gold cloaks, the Tyrell spies. Her answering smile was no less wry. Can we hold each other, you mean? The realm rests on it. Robb glanced across the yard to where gray wind circled wagons stacked with barrels. There will be a feast tonight. I'd have you sit the dais beside me, not as guest, as queen of the north. My bannermen must see. I will wear wolf fur, Cersei promised. With a lion's heart beating beneath. That afternoon Jaime Lannister rode through Riverrun's west gate in a flurry of blown snow and flapping crimson cloaks. His party numbered 50. Picked guards, 2 maesters, and Pycelle's wretch of an apprentice bearing a chest of medicines for winter flux. Trumpets rang. Common folk gawked. Jaime swung from the saddle and strode across the bailey, gold hand gleaming in gray daylight. Robb met him at the steps of the great keep. They stopped a sword's length apart, study to study. At last Jaime inclined his head. Your Grace. Robb dipped fractionally.
Sir Jaime.
Welcome to Riverrun. A generous greeting, considering. Jaime's grin was lopsided. Last time we crossed blades, I was trying to kill your uncle. And I was 16. Robb's eyes flickered to the gilded stump. War has changed us both. Jaime chuckled softly. A fair exchange. You lost a father. I lost a hand. Shall we call it even? His tone was glib, yet something steely lay beneath. Robb's voice cooled. We shall call it history, not prophecy. Behave as guest, and you will be welcome at my board. Your board. Jaime glanced past him as the doors swung wide. Cersei stood at the top of the stairs in wolf fur cloak. Light from the hall behind turned her hair molten. Jaime's breath hitched. Sweet sister. Cersei descended. She paused before him. The courtyard held its breath. Even the ravens seemed to hush. Cersei lifted her chin.
Sir Jaime.
My queen. His green eyes glittered with a dozen unsaid things. Love, anger, disbelief. He reached for her hand, but she offered only a gloved palm, formal and remote. He kissed the furred knuckles, mouth brushing cold leather. Cersei withdrew. Come inside. We have miles of parchment and hours of talk ahead. Jaime followed, gaze flicking between her and Robb.
Riverruns Banners rippelt overhead, Tully Trut, stark die Revolf, Lannister Lion.
Snow fell more thickly, softening colors, but not their edges. In the solar martin Tully once used, blankets of warm air from braziers wrapped the chamber. Tywin sat at the map table, candle stubs pooling wax around Blackwater Bay. Jaime burst in unannounced. The guards did not dare bar him. Cersei marched after, shutting the door with a thud. Robb lingered outside, deciding the family storm was best weathered without a wolf. Jaime planted his gold hand on the map. You married her off like a brood mare, to a Stark. Tywin lifted an eyebrow. I did not hear you object when Robert Baratheon claimed her bed. That was different, Jaime snarled. Robert was king, fat and soon dead. Robb is a boy who killed his way to a crown, which makes him dangerous. Tywin rose, emerald cloak sweeping. Better dangerous as son than foe. He'll never be your son, Jaime spat. He will be father to your sister's next child." The older man's voice was iron-shod. "And that child will bind north and south with blood neither side would dare spill lightly, unless Stannis wins his war." Jaime paced. "And he will. Storms end, men rally. Sell sails join daily." Tywin's gaze froze him. "You forget yourself. I crafted this union for victory, not sentiment. Stannis's fire drowns half the realm. We will smother the rest with gold, ships, and a united north before he reaches King's Landing." Cersei spoke at last, voice low. "And if the north does not stay united, then we remind them of the cost of fracture." Tywin turned to her. "You will learn their legends, their loyalties. You will make them love you or fear you or both. It matters not which." Cersei's lips pressed white. "I loved no man but Jaime. The wolves know that. You thought you loved." Tywin's words dropped like stones in icy water. "Real love is the realm we build, not the flesh we warm. You will not fail me, daughter." Silence shod the chamber. Cersei's eyes shimmered. Not with tears, Jaime knew, but with fury balanced on a blade. At last she inclined her head. "I will do what must be done." Tywin nodded. "As we all will." When Jaime strode from the room, he found Robb waiting as though carved of the wall. For a heartbeat neither spoke. Then Jaime's grin returned, cold as the snow swirling outside. "Your direwolf tried to eat my horse." "He was testing southern meat," Robb said blandly. "We seldom see it up here." Jaime laughed, a brittle sound. "Take care the wolf does not choke." Robb watched him leave, then pushed open the solar door again. Cersei and Tywin stood at opposite ends of the map, father north, daughter south. Robb cleared his throat. "Shall we break for the afternoon? The feast requires review." Tywin gestured assent. Cersei followed Robb out, and for one flashing instant he laid his hand over hers atop her arm. Steady, anchor-sure. She looked up. "Trust must begin somewhere," he had said. She let the warmth linger. They dined that night beneath banners heavy with frost. Minstrels piped northern airs while barrel-chested singers from the winter town roared harmonies. Ser Brynden Tully presided over boar carving. The Freys glowered at the far trestles. Roose Bolton sipped watered wine, watching every toast like a crow watches harvest. Cersei sat in the high seat at Robb's right. Northern stews steamed. Sweet root pies followed. Mulled ale flowed. At first the hall rang with forced cheer. Then Robb lifted his cup. "My lords, my ladies. Tonight we begin a story no bard has yet dared pen." A wolf song joined to a lion's roar. Hear it and know, winter and gold stand together. He turned to Cersei. "Will you toast our tale?" She rose, goblet raised. "To peace that sharpens us, not dulls us. And to children who will inherit a realm cooler heads once saved from its own flame." Her eyes swept the benches. Karstark, Ryswell, Tyrell envoys, Lannister knights. "Drink or do not, but remember this night." Silence held. A single suspended heartbeat, then cups lifted. Roars and howls rose, clashing yet oddly harmonious. Minstrels struck a chord, and the mood eased as though a knot had loosened round the hall's throat. Later, when the first cask of Greywater black beer ran dry, Great John Umber slammed a fist and demanded a pit fight between Direwolf and Lannister Red Lion banners. Cheers answered. Robb laughed, deflecting. Cersei slipped away, needing air. Outside, snow fell in dense curtains. Torches painted halos through the swirl. Cersei walked alone, no guards for once. Boots crunched. Behind her, Jaime emerged from shadow. "You vanished from your husband's side. I breathe easier beyond the smoke." She did not slow.
Jaime matched de pace, shoulder brushing cloak.
He spoke softly. "When have you and I ever needed smoke or snow to share breath?" Cersei halted. The night held its breath. "Those days ended on a tower ledge in Winterfell," she whispered. "Our fates changed with Bran Stark's fall. This marriage, I did not choose it, but I will own it, Jaime. Do not make war upon it or upon me." Jaime's sigh frosted in the air. "Do you love him?" "Love?" She gave a brittle laugh. I barely know him, but I will not be merely pawn again. With Robb, I may become queen in deed, not just in name." Jaime glanced away. "And your children? Joffrey? Myrcella? Tommen? They are mine still. I wrote them by Raven this morning to see. North at first thaw under royal guard. Let the realm see Lannister cubs embraced by a Stark castle." Her voice gentled. "You can come too, sing them tales of lions." Jaime's gold hand flexed. "If I do as uncle. Nothing more. Then come as uncle." She touched her gloved fingertips to his cheek. "But do not call me sister again in longing. That name is a chain I have slipped." He caught her wrist, grip trembling, then released it. Something broke behind his eyes, perhaps the last tether between lion twins. Without reply he turned, footsteps crunching into night. Cersei stared after until wind buried his prints. In a root cellar beneath the eastern tower, Walder Rivers, a Fry bastard in mottled cloak, crouched over a small parchment. Candles guttered. The room stank of turnips. Beside him Ramsay Snow chewed a sliver of salted pork. "We move tonight?" Walder shook his head. "Too many eyes, but the river flows swift. A body lost beneath ice is seldom found." He passed Ramsay a finger-length glass vial swirled with black fluid. Essence of nightshade, a few drops in ale. "He sleeps, he never wakes." Ramsay smiled, broad and childlike. "Which he? The wolf, or the lioness, if easier?" Ramsay rolled the vial between thumb and finger. "Easier to slit than to pour. Blood sings louder." He slipped the vial into his boot. Still, poison keeps options open. A third figure shifted from shade. Harbert Riswell, thin as wind. "Waste no time. If Bolton backs us, we strike at feast's end." The North remembers he lost his hand to Robb's pardon, not his father's sword. Ramsay licked pork grease. "Bolton backs himself, but I crave sport." He rose, stretched. "Tonight's too sweet. Snow veils tracks. Guards drink deep." He flashed teeth. "The lioness bleeds the same color as anyone." They slunk away, silent as wolves who had learned how to wear men's skins. Cersei returned to the feast as tumblers tumbled and harpers strummed a bawdy tune. She threaded between benches toward the dais. Suddenly gray wind leapt from beneath the high table, hackles bristling, lips writhing. A snarl carved silence down the center of the hall. Cups stilled. The harper's cord hung unfinished. Robb stood, hand on hilt. Gray wind. The direwolf's eyes, gold-lit, fixed on a trio of servants bearing trencher bowls toward the high seats. One servant, Ramsay in scullion's garb, met the wolf's gaze and faltered. A pewter bowl clattered. Stew sluiced. The wolf lunged. Ramsay swore, flinging ladle, and fled through a side arch. Gray wind barreled after. Men shouted. Robb vaulted the table. Cersei pressed back as soldiers jostled. Tywin barked for order. Swords cleared scabbards. But within heartbeats the wolf returned, jaws foaming crimson. Yet the blood was not Ramsay's. A gutted boar shank dangled from his maw. He dropped it at Robb's boots with an innocent huff. Nervous laughter rippled. Robb knelt, checked the meat. No poison, his nostrils told him. Only fear had spooked the beast. He ruffled the direwolf's fur and straightened. He forgot we killed this boar earlier. A jest, light as he could muster. The hall relaxed, tension dissipating like breath on glass. Still, Robb's eyes raked the crowd. Ramsay had vanished. Fry bastards whispered, shifting on benches. Tywin's brow furrowed. He knew a test when he saw one. Cersei reclaimed her seat. The night resumed its coarse melody, but unseen chords had changed key. Suspicion threaded every laugh, every clink. Behind her goblet Cersei murmured to Robb, "Your wolf saved us from something. Perhaps from my own cooking," Robb whispered back. Yet he too believed the beast sensed more than pork. Before the moon reached zenith, Roose Bolton found Ramsay huddled in a hay loft, boot empty of vial. He cuffed him hard. "Fool, dire wolves knows a lie by scent." Ramsay wiped blood from lip, giggling. Games are more fun when the pieces fight back. Roos's eyes gleamed dull. The next move is my own. Go south. Lay quiet in Harrenhal until I send word. Harrenhal sings with ghosts. Then sing louder. Roos pressed a coin purse into his bastard's palm. And listen, we will cut deeper than poison. The longer the wolf sleeps beside the lioness, the sweeter their death will taste. Ramsay's grin lit the dark. Wolves bleed forever. He slipped away into falling snow. Roos watched until white swallowed him, then turned toward the great keep's torch glow. Patience was a flaying knife. The slower the pull, the louder the scream. After the feast, Robb escorted Cersei to the solar granted them. A chamber of oak beams and wolf pelts, large hearth casting gold. Servants stoked flame, then bowed out. Alone, they stood before flickering fire. Cersei unhooked her cloak, laid it over a stool. She began unlacing her gloves. Robb said, I have doubled your guard. I noticed. 2 Frey men. 1 Frey, 1 Ryswell. Both sworn by oaths and gold. Oaths I mistrust. Gold I know. She eased the wolf gem from her hair. I will keep my own dagger beneath the pillow. As will I. He tugged off his wolfskin mantle, laid it on a bench. It seems we begin marriage as duelists rather than dancers. Better steel honest than honey false. Cersei faced him in fire glow. Your wolf saved us tonight. You think me target? Someone meant ill. Robb stepped closer. A Stark king once said, the man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. If someone strikes at my queen, I will swing. I can swing too. Her fingers brushed the dagger at her hip. Robb's lips tugged upward. Let us both swing, but not at each other. He lifted a hand, hesitated, then brushed a lock of her hair behind her ear. Gold threads slipped through calloused fingers. I would learn your stories, Cersei, not the ones whispered in courts. Your truths. She met his gaze steadily. And I yours, but answers take time. Trust takes longer. Then we have time. He gestured to the hearthside couch. Sit. Tell me of Jaime as children. Surprise flickered across her features. No one asked her that anymore. Slowly she sat. Robb poured mulled wine. Snow hissed against windows, and the night unfolded in stories of 2 bright-haired twins racing through Casterly Rock's labyrinthine mines, of Tyrion the half-man teaching her Syvas, of Tywin's silent wrath after Joanna's death. Robb listened, drinking each fragment like scouts' intel on unknown terrain. When she tired, Cersei leaned back, eyes half-lidded. Your turn. He spoke of climbing Winterfell's towers with Jon, of Bran's first arrow, of Arya chasing cats, of the fear beneath Ned's execution that froze him so hard he thought he would break. His voice cracked at his father's name. Cersei reached, touched his wrist. They stayed so, hands lightly joined, the only heat between them. At length Robb stirred. The hour is late. He rose, offered her his hand. She accepted. They crossed to the bed. Candles guttered low. He removed sword belt and boots. She slipped gown overhead, wearing a linen shift. They slid beneath furs, a careful gulf of cool linens between. Yet when wind howled through shutters, she shifted closer. Seeking warmth, she told herself. He wrapped an arm, slow, as if expecting her to pull away. She did not. In the hush before sleep, she whispered, If this peace fails, know I did try. And if it holds, he murmured against her hair. No, we forged it together. Outside, snow deepened, blanketing ramparts, horse pens, tents, tracks, layering all the realm's grudges under white silence. Somewhere in that silence, gray wind prowled, scenting unseen dangers. Somewhere farther, Ramsay rode for Harrenhal, nightshade sloshing in his boot once more. Eastward, Stannis' fleet unfurled black sails beneath a bleeding moon. And on Dragonstone, a red woman scribed shadows on stone walls, whispering of lions, wolves, and the song of ice and fire now knotted tighter than ever. But for this one night the hearth in Riverrun's royal chambers crackled warm, and 2 wary souls drifted into uneasy dreams, sharing, if not love, at least the first fragile sprout of something like hope. Morning brought tidings as bitter as the wind. A raven from the wall. Maester Aemon's trembling script reported wildlings massing under a new banner. Dusky black stitched with a sigil no one in Castle Black could name. A lion devouring a direwolf. Robb's council gathered in urgent hush. Even Tywin's face twitched at the affront. Forged to mock us, Roose Bolton observed, or to declare a hunt. Cersei scanned the message. Wildlings do not sow such heraldry. Someone teaches them. Who? Edmure asked. Who profits from breaking our union? Robb replied. Stannis, the Greyjoys, the Tyrells, any. Or Ramsay Snow, whispered Maester Vyman, who loves sport more than crowns. Robb rolled the map. Send riders to White Harbor. Summon Manderley ships to bear grain to the wall. We will remind our brothers in black that the North stands. Tywin's cool voice cut in. And we send ravens south. King's Landing will lend crossbows. If the crown defends the wall, the watch must remember whose gold buys arrows. Cersei met his gaze. And whose bride guards the north? Tywin's nod conceded point. Together Lion and Wolf turned to Winter's challenge once more. 500 leagues away, Davos Seaworth stood on Storm's End's ramparts beside King Stannis, waves smashing the cliff in white fury. A raven perched on the windgate. The parchment it bore crimson-sealed with lion sigil. Stannis slid it open, eyes flicking side to side. His mouth became a rigid line. So, the Whore Queen has taken the wolf to husband. Ice weds fire, Davos. Or so they think. What will we do, your grace? We burn the bridegroom's house down. Stannis crumpled the scroll. And we salt the ashes with justice. Above them the Red Woman appeared, cloak billowing like a falling star. The fires show a different path, your grace. One where lions kneel and wolves bow, but a stag of blackened crown stands tallest. Stannis snorted. The fires change with each log. Not the true flames, she murmured. They show me a lioness with wolf cubs suckling her breasts. One cub is white, one gold. They bite each other even as they feed. Davos suppressed a shiver. Stannis turned away. Enough riddles. Ready the fleet. In Highgarden, Marjorie Tyrell crushed a rose between slender fingers until red petals stained her skin. Her grandmother paced. Well, my sweet, we are spared Joffrey's temper at table. But a lioness in the north starves roses of sun. We trellis elsewhere, grandmother, Marjorie said softly. Let Stannis and the Greyjoys tear lion and wolf apart. Then we bloom. Lady Olenna's sharp eyes twinkled. We shall see if winter kills flowers, or preserves them in ice. Thus the kingdoms shifted. Banners sewn in secret lofts, ravens blackening skies, blades honed on whetstones in every keep. Yet in Riverrun a queen and a king walked ramparts together that twilight, breath mingling white in the air. Cersei surveyed the snow's cape. My father calls this peace, but to me it feels like standing in the eye of a storm. Robb rested gloved hands on the parapet. In the eye, the sky is clear. We can chart our course while winds calm, before the next wall of cloud. And when it hits, then we face it side by side. He studied her profile. I was raised to trust honor. You were taught to wield power. Perhaps together we'll learn both. Cersei almost smiled. Teach me honor, then, and I'll teach you power. She extended her hand. Robb took it, fingers weaving with hers. Below, river ice cracked like distant thunder, warning or portent. Above, the first star pricked the violet sky, solitary, steadfast. They watched it flare as night swelled, unaware that somewhere beyond horizon, a hooded figure bled a lamb upon white sand, chanting of shadows. Unaware that at Dragonstone a coal-eyed shape rose from firelight, wings unfurling where none should be. But for this moment, atop winter walls, lion and wolf clasped hands. Two proud beasts bridled to a common sledge, dragging kingdoms behind. Whether their stride would hold or stumble none could know. Yet step by step they moved together into the deepening snow, forging footprints history would follow long after their hearts had ceased to beat. Snow fell like sifted flour across Riverrun's girdling river, each flake settling upon the cold black mirror until the current carried it away and left the surface unmarred. The keep lay hushed beneath that white drift, great banners muted and heavy, and the world seemed in a breath-held pause where nothing dared speak too loudly for fear the spell should break. Torches flickered on parapets, their flames too sluggish to gutter in the stillness. Only the slow clap of water beneath the drawbridge offered proof that time crept onward. Robb Stark stood on an upper balcony observing the snowfall while maids stripped the feast hall below, piling trestles and sweeping bones. Cersei, he knew, occupied the solar with his mother, trading small courtesies that felt to him like the sharpening of hidden knives. He tried to imagine those two women speaking candidly, of daughters lost and sons endangered, of kingdoms worn like mantles that bit into the shoulders, but he suspected candor had little place between them. Catelyn would see in Cersei the golden thread sewn through every wound her family bore. Cersei would see in Catelyn the quiet judgment of a realm that had long whispered lioness and brother in the same breath. Some gaps could not be bridged, only overlooked in the name of larger, higher causes. Peace asked such overlooking every day. Grey wind lay at his feet, nose crusted white. The direwolf's ears twitched, catching faint noises Robb could never hear. The creak of old ropes in the stables, a sentry's cough, the nocturnal scrape of a mouse foraging below the eaves. The beast lifted his muzzle, scented the air, and whined. Robb knelt, scratching the rough. "Do you sense him again?" he murmured, meaning Ramsay Snow, gone but not forgotten. Grey wind's tail beat once against stone, then stilled. Robb drew no comfort. A wolf that lifted hackles for no clear reason promised danger near or far. Steps approached, measured, unhurried. Yet Grey Wind did not bristle. Edmure appeared, cloak tucked close and hair blowing lank across his brow. "The gold cloaks set out at dawn," he announced. "Your orders are writ, and Lord Tywin's ravens fly in 2 hours for King's Landing. We have 12 scribes blistering their quills to send half the city's parchment south." 12. Robb mustered tired humor. "He writes more commands than there are swords in his company." Edmure gave a thin smile. "Words can bleed deeper than steel." They leaned together on the parapet. Below, lights winked out one by one. The hush deepened until Robb felt each breath echo his own heartbeat. He thought of letters still unwritten. One to Jon at the Wall, unmailed these many months. One to Bran and Rickon, should they be found alive after Winterfell's fall. One to Sansa wherever she endured in King's Landing's shadow. He would write them soon, always soon. Yet how did a man write from so many thrones within one body? Son, brother, king, husband to an enemy, warlord to a realm that demanded glory. Each voice tugged, discordant chords of duty. He longed for one honest hour in Winterfell's Godswood, but Winterfell lay ashes and broken timber under still smoldering dreams. Edmure spoke again, quietly. "Do you trust her?" Robb did not feign ignorance. "Enough to eat at her table. Trust is not meat." Edmure's fingers tapped the stone. "Nor wine. It is what remains when meat is scarce and wine is sour. Time shall prove her." Time seems suddenly dear. Robb pushed away from the ledge. "Come, uncle. We ride in 2 days. The king and queen must show themselves beyond these walls. The bannermen grumble that winter roads will close. If we do not reach Moat Cailin before the first deep storms, the army will scatter to their home keeps and we will look like a court of trick ponies parading indoors." Edmure grimaced. "Best depart quickly, then. Supply wagons labor in snow and Ironborn raid the western coast. Some lords already whisper they ride to defend castles, not deliver crowds to your queen's coronation." Robb nodded. "I'll meet them on those castle walls if need be, but first I must show them lion claws dulled by winter, not sharpened." He squeezed Edmure's arm, turned down the stairs, Grey wind ghosting behind. In the solar, Catelyn poured tea for Cersei from a slender silver pot Robb remembered from childhood. The two women glanced up as he entered. The room was warm with firelight. Steam curled and the smell of pine resin layered over the spiced drink. Cersei sat as gracefully as any court hawk on a silk perch, gauging Robb with an unreadable half-smile. His mother's smile was easier to interpret, wearied relief that her son still breathed. He bowed to them both and took the third chair. "We leave for the Neck at dawn 2 days hence. I will ride at the van with Grey Wind and 1,000 spears. Lord Tywin returns to the capital with his host, leaving a token guard here. Mother, you will accompany the captives south. Ser Jaime, Lord Edwin Fry, and any Tyrell envoys my Lady Queen deems wise. Their presence will quiet a few halls." Cersei stirred her cup. "Quiet or enrage? The Reach may not relish seeing me ride north with the North's king. They relish even less that you ride anywhere with Stannis at large," Robb answered. "If Tyrells resent, they may comfort themselves in Highgarden's harvest. Winter will pass them by." Cersei touched the side of her teacup. "And if winter passes no one by?" Robb looked into her green gaze and wondered again how this alliance would weather truly savage cold that stripped armies of courage and kings of crowns. "Then we meet winter where we must. Together." He stood, bowed, and withdrew before more words crowded the brief accord. When the door had shut, Catelyn set down her drink. "He looks older every dawn." Cersei said nothing, fingertips tracing condensation on porcelain. At last she rose. "Our sons grow older with each of his gray hairs. Perhaps that will weigh on him." Catelyn breathed in through her nose. "Do not use children as anvils, Your Grace. I use what I have." Cersei turned to the fire. "Tywin used me. Robert used me. Jaime used me in his own way. Why should I not take from the realm what debts it owes?" Catelyn's eyes flared, but her voice remained even. "It owes you the lives you spare. I do not promise mercy." Cersei glanced back. "Only results." Catelyn held her gaze, steady as northern stone. "Make those results the kind that keep men alive, and you may yet redeem those debts." Cersei nodded once. "We shall see whose coins are accepted." 2 dawns later the procession wound out from Riverrun under a sky blanched bone white. Snow still sifted, but a colder wind blew beneath, scouring the roads clear in swirling ribbons. Trumpets called a soft farewell, no thunderous fanfare that might provoke Omen Minders. Robb rode at the fore upon a tall gray courser, Grey Wind looping ahead, vanishing into stands of Winterbarren alder and reappearing like an Omen himself. Cersei rode to his right on a dappled mare gifted by Lord Ryswell, a northern breed thick-necked and sure-footed. She wore a fur-lined half-helm whose cheek-plates bore twin sigils, lion and direwolf entwined. Some lords saw false heraldry in the melding, but Robb had insisted. Best the realm see them welded. Behind came ranks of Stark spearmen, mail-ringed. In frost, household knights on stocky garrons, crossbowmen from the twins muttering into their scarves. Further back wagons rattled, supplies, wedding gifts, Tywin's coffers. Then trailing outriders and sellswords in half-Lannister colors, sworn for coin, not love. They followed the Red Fork to the Green Fork, then northward along the King's Road where tracks were already churned by merchant caravans fleeing cold. The first night they camped among leafless willows beside a shallow ford. Fires dotted the banks. Grey Wind ran the perimeter while Robb moved among tents listening to low voices. Some men still balked at a Lannister queen. Others, mostly younger, found novelty in gold hair amid so much brown. Robb marked which voices sowed dissent. He spoke soft words where he could, but he could not quell every rumor. In the Queen's pavilion Cersei sat armored only in a wool gown, studying a huge sheaf of parchment penned in Tywin's hand, ledgers and projected winter costs. Robb ducked inside, helm under arm. She looked up, and for a moment relief lighted her face. Subtle, quickly buried. He set a wineskin on the table. "Mulled with juniper. Thought you might welcome warmth." She accepted, sipped. "Your men shadow my tents. One followed me even to the stream." "I trust most banners," he said. "But not all." A fry sharpened the boar. "Do you believe it was poison?" She cocked a brow. "Enough to watch you close." She nodded, swirling wine. "Boltons watch too." "Aye." He drew a stool, unrolled a map. "We march to Moat Cailin, then Winterfell's ruins if weather holds. The walls still stand, we can shelter there until spring. I'll rebuild in stages, first courtyards, then keep. Winterfell, she murmured, surveying black-inked towers. A castle older than Lannister's, old as the first men. His finger traced the defensive ring. Hot springs run beneath. Stone stays warm even in blizzard. Cersei studied the map, lips pursed. A hot castle for a cold queen. A home, he corrected, for both crowns. She met his gaze. Perhaps. Silence stretched, filled only by canvas whisper. Tell me of the crypts. I hear they run deeper than memory. Skulls of Starks line their vaults, he answered. Stone kings on stone thrones. My father sits there now, sword across his lap. Cersei's eyes flickered. Pity or calculation, he could not tell. Would you take me below? To meet your dead. When Winterfell is ours again. Robb's voice thickened. And when you swear no harm shall come to their rest. Cersei's chin lifted. I swear harm to no stone. Living flesh offends me more. Robb almost laughed at that and wondered when last she had startled a smile from him. He leaned back. Then you will descend with me. Later, when he left, he paused outside to watch snowy sparks swirl off her brazier against night. She sat again over ledgers, quill moving. The sigil on her helm flickered. Lion jaws clamped about a wolf's throat, but both creatures turned outward, guarding an unseen foe. Across the narrow sea a tempest battered the harbor of Pentos, and black waves hammered stone piers until moored cog and carrack alike groaned on their anchor chains. Within the airy manse of Magister Illyrio, candles guttered and tapestries flapped. Before a blaze taller than most men stood Daenerys Targaryen, arms folded tight, eyes like polished topaz fixed on a parchment. Her Khalasar slept scattered across the manse's halls. Jiki curled against a wall, eerie humming low to calm the dragons sulking in their cage. The parchment carried two seals, a lion and a wolf. She read again words Illyrio had translated, news of a marriage between the Queen Dowager of Westeros and the king in the north. Wolves wedded to lions, kingdoms kneeling to new heirs. Daenerys felt the fragile promise of that realm shiver across the bitter sea like a spider's thread. Peace could mean closed ports to sell-sail armies. It could mean walls strengthened before she arrived. Or it could mean houses divided, each watching the other, leaving flanks exposed for the rightful queen's return. She dropped the scroll into the fire. Flames licked crimson wax, twisting it into smoke. Drogon stirred, eyes glowing behind bars. Daenerys stepped to the cage, pressed her forehead against warm iron. Soon, she whispered, let them build new thrones of ice and gold. We will scour both with dragonfire. The dragons hissed, wings rasping. Outside, thunder broke like distant drums, an omen she chose to claim for her own. The Ravenry atop the wall stood crowded with birds restless under a bruised sky. Jon Snow steadied a parchment beneath a sputtering tallow lamp, too wary of sudden wind to trust the railing perch. The message bore Robb's seal, wolf entwined with lion. Even alone in the rookery, Jon felt eyes upon him. The wall kept secrets poorly. He read quickly, words stark and spare. A marriage, a march, a request for news of wildlings bearing new sigil. Jon's breath showed in a chill swirl. He thought of Ygritte's tales of Mance Raider forging tribes into one army. He thought of a lion devouring a dire wolf stitched on crude black cloth and how that image might poison free folk with rumors of southern conquest, stoking their fear to frenzy. He fetched ink, wrote back. Wildling scouts confirm movement. Numbers unknown. Banners mixed. Night grows colder. Rangers stretch thin. He added a line in smaller hand. I remain true. Burn after reading. Then he sealed, tied to a raven's leg. As it fluttered into the steel sky, he wondered which would arrive first, Robb's armies at the neck or dead men's fingers scraping at the gates. Southward the golden fleet of Old Town unfurled bright sails, Tyrell green and gold, but beneath them another sigil fluttered in secret, a golden rose pierced by a thorn of black. Lady Olenna watched from the prow of the flagship Sweet Summer, her sharp gaze on distant storms. Beside her, Marjorie kept hood drawn. "Grandmother, if the lioness binds the north, how do we approach?" Olenna sniffed the briny air. "With caution and cakes as ever. We entreat mother above while father below sharpens spades. Men call it charity, we call it insurance. Let the north freeze. Our grain will earn the love a lioness cannot cook. And if Stannis takes King's Landing, then we invite him to sup, on roses or on poison, should he find roses unpalatable." Olenna patted her granddaughter's gloved hand. "Remember, child, thrones change seats more often than cushions. We simply ensure the next occupant leans our way." Marjorie's smile carried no mirth. "And I the cushion." "I." The old woman squinted. "But a cushion can smother as well as soften." On the third week of travel, Robb's host reached the high bridge at Maidenpool, only to find the Greyjoy raiders had burned its eastern span and scattered the surviving guards inland. Scouts returned blistered with cold and shame, reporting Ironborn led by Victarion Greyjoy himself sailing the Trident's forks, harrying villages unprotected by the king's southward push. Smoke rings stained the horizon. Refugees trooped west with tales of drowned god sacrifices hung from weeping willows. At council that night, Robb slammed a mailed fist on a barrel map. "If we divert, we lose the neck before first frost. But if we leave the coast unguarded, Greyjoys carve fetters on every shore." Cersei regarded the charcoal of burned steads. "My brother Tyrion once told Victarion he was a blunt axe. Blunt axes split wood, though slowly." Tywin's envoy Heatherspoon scowled. "Greyjoys may ally with Stannis, combine their fleets, cut the narrow sea, starve King's Landing. Victarion will not kneel to any king but his drowned god." Cersei's fingers drummed the table. "Yet axes may sell their swings. Offer him gold." Robb shook his head. "He wants salt wives and fear. Only fire quenches Greyjoy thirst." Roose Bolton spoke then, calm as ever. "Send a swift detachment of hillsmen to harry the raiders' camps while our main force presses north. Hillsmen fight like wraiths, strike at night, slip away by dawn. Fewer than 500 could bleed the Ironborn until storms drive them off." "And those hillsmen yours?" Robb asked sharply. "Some," Bolton acknowledged. "Others from clans Harklay and Little, eager for plunder. Promise them spoils of the Greyjoy ships." Cersei watched the exchange. "Spoils now, by loyalty later." Robb considered. Maps rustled. At last he nodded. "Do it. But if your hillsmen loot innocent steadings, I strip their hides for banners." Bolton bowed, expression unreadable. "As you decree, your grace." After council, Cersei cornered Robb beside a lantern tree. "Bolton plays a long game. Beware each piece he moves." Robb gave a rueful smile. "Your first lesson in northern politics. Trust is measured in knives pointed outward, not inward." She touched his arm. "And your first lesson in southern politics. Every knife points inward eventually." Night deepened cold. Wind cut sharper. Tents thrummed like ship sails in a gale. In his pavilion, Robb removed cloak, teeth chattering, when Cersei stepped in without guard. She unfastened her own cloak, cheeks pinked by frigid air. "Your steward said you skipped supper. War kibble tastes of sawdust." He poured 2 cups of hot mead. She accepted, warming fingers on the clay. They sat on a rug near a brazier. Silence stretched but did not strain. Robb studied her profile. Flickering fire cast shadows along cheekbones, softened the hard set of her eyes. "I've wondered," he began, "why you agreed so quickly. Pride once defined you. Queen to a king, mother to future kings. Why yield that for Winter?" Her gaze slid to the flame. "Because pride without power is air. Robert's drunken slumbers taught me that. Joffrey's tantrums taught me more. A queen who cannot protect her children wears a crown of mud. I traded gilded mud for iron." "And me?" he asked softly. "Iron or mud?" The corner of her mouth curled. "An alloy. We will see whether it bends." He chuckled, surprised. "My bannermen would call that prophecy. I call it truth." She took a long drink, then set the cup aside and shifted closer. "Do your bannermen know you laugh?" Some. His voice roughened. Fewer since war began. A heartbeat of silent tension hung as their knees touched. Cersei laid her palm on his chest, feeling a ragged thump. The songs will call this a political bed, but we alone decide whether it is also a marriage. Robb searched her eyes. He saw there fatigue, ambition, calculation, but also an ember of something fiercer. Hope or need. At last he leaned and brushed her lips, gingerly as testing winter ice. She did not pull away. The ember flared. When they parted, her voice was husky. We make a dangerous alloy, Wolf King. Dangerous things survive cold. He murmured, drawing her near. Far north beyond the wall, Mance Rayder strode through the camp of gathered clans. The new banner. A lion devouring a wolf, flapping overhead. Torches lit faces half-painted in ash. Children hunched under reindeer hides. Warriors gripping stone-faced axes. Mance paused before a giant of a man wearing the flayed men's sigil over furs. This sign is not welcome, he warned. The giant, known only as the bastard of the Dreadfort, smiled thin. Southron gold buys welcome, king beyond the wall. My lord father pays dear for chaos. Mance spat. The free folk sell themselves to no kneeler lord. Gold tastes the same on any tongue, the bastard replied, hefting a sack of gleaming coins. And if lion eats wolf, the wall falls alone. Then your people walk through snows unchallenged. Mance considered the banner whipping in polar wind. I swore no pact to help fight Starks, Boltons, or Lannisters. I want the wall open because winter comes for all. Do not twist my war. Wars twist themselves, the bastard said, stepping back into shadow. Mind that you're not bent beyond shape. He vanished among tents, leaving Mance staring at the banner, recognizing poison when he saw it, yet unsure how to excise it without shattering fragile unity. Back in the south, Jaime Lannister's escort rode hard toward King's Landing, Ser Island Payne carrying the weight of silence beside the gilded carriage that held Myrcella draped in sable. Jaime rode at the flank, gold hand cold against reins. Ravens overhead leapt from rook to rook, riding the edge of storms. He recalled Cersei's soft goodbye. No kiss, only fingers brushing shoulder. Protect our daughter. He would. Yet each hoofbeat drummed the truth that their paths diverged like shards of a broken sword. Somewhere to the north she lay in wolf pelts beside a king whose laughter Jaime had heard once around a map table, deep and honest. The wound bled, but not as he expected. It bled relief twisted with ache. Cersei had chosen, for better or worse. Jaime had a war of his own. A realm suspicious, a small council fracturing, and a boy king near impossible to guide without his mother's iron whisper. He urged his horse faster. The sooner they reached the gate, the sooner he could shield Myrcella from court vipers. And perhaps, though he dared not admit it, the sooner he could choose a road of his own, one not defined by twins entwined. At Dreadfort, Roose Bolton knelt upon a stone dais where skins of strangers hung curing. Ramsay's letter lay open, a page spattered with wine and perhaps blood. It spoke of raids gone awry, of grey winds sent, of a queen guarded too closely. Roose folded it carefully. He called to Maester Walton. Send word to our man in King's Landing. The time approaches. Stalk not the queen yet. Sever her escort first. A cub lost stirs a lioness to wrath, and wrath clouds judgment. Walton bowed and withdrew. Roose placed the letter on a brazier. Flames curled, a thin hiss rising like flayed flesh. All men bite, he whispered. But only those who taste blood learn to hunt. Snow hammered barracks outside, but within the Dreadfort's heart a darker chill nested. Weeks later Robb's host sighted Moat Cailin. Massive stone towers half-sunken in bog, walls crumbling yet still formidable. Fog swaddled the causeway, torches gleamed like drowned stars. The iron-born banner, black kraken on gold, hung from the outer tower. Trumpets blared, arrow flights answered. Battle howled where earth squelched beneath feet. Robb led the charge personally. Grey wind weaving through Pike's crossbow bolts clattered from his shield as he gained the ramp. Cersei watched from a hillock under heavy guard, jaw clenched, heart hammering with each scream. She had thought herself inured to battle, but this war unfolded within and around her like living fire. A Frey standard-bearer fell to a thrown axe. Robb vaulted the fallen, shouting commands. Within 3 hours, the Kraken banner was hacked down. Bodies littered swamp and parapet, but the causeway opened. Robb emerged from the gate spattered in muck, sword dripping. Cersei met him at the palisade, armor gleaming where blood had been wiped. Victorious, she breathed, relief cracking like ice. He simply nodded, too tired for words. Yet when she reached to steady him, he leaned momentarily into her support. Inside the captured tower they held swift tribunal. The Ironborn captain raged until Robb's axe silenced him. Others bent knee, offered oaths, spattered tears on rusting mail. Cersei judged them with the cold precision Tywin once lauded. Those who burned towns saw the rope. Those who merely stood watch were branded and sent to row grain ships north as forced labor. Some Stark lords murmured disapproval, branding an enemy with southern cruelty. But Robb backed her. Cool down might teach more than cold steel, he said. And so a line of sullen reavers marched shackled toward the sea, their palms blistered by new irons pressed against skin. That night they bivouacked within the fallen fortress. Fires struggled against bog damp. Wolves howled distant. Ravens clustered thick upon ruins pecking at carrion, while sentries cursed them away. In his tent Robb slumped on a stool, armor half removed. Cersei knelt, prying buckles. She found a crossbow graze across his ribs, tended it with wine and linen. When done, she sat back on her heels, studying the curve of his shoulder under lamplight. His eyes fluttered, lips parted in exhausted thanks. She stood, let her cloak fall. They drew together not with ceremony but with the urgency of lives measured against arrow flights. Later, tangled in damp furs, Robb traced a scar along her thigh. When? He asked. Robert's stag hunt. She sighed. Boar slipped past him. I rode after. Fell in brambles cut deep. The maester said I'd limp, but I kept walking. She shifted, brushed his cheek. We all keep walking. He kissed the scar, then the hollow of her knee. Outside the wind pushed through the towers, groaning like old timbers. Yet within the tent the groan found answer in softer accords. For that brief compass of hours winter's war receded, replaced by breath and blood and heat. Morning birthed gray drizzle. Scouts galloped in from northwest. A Bolton raiding party gone missing near Stony Shore. Ironborn bodies found flayed. Robb summoned Roose, voice clipped. Bolton claimed ignorance, promised to send his bastard to investigate. Cersei watched suspicion coil around the war table like a serpent seeking warmth. After counsel, she pulled Robb aside. Your lord of flayed men walks 2 roads at once. If you do not shackle him now, he will choose the path that leads to your grave. Robb rubbed tired eyes. I cannot behead every man I mistrust. No, she said. Only the ones sharpening blades behind your back. He held her gaze. When the time comes, help me see which blades to fear. A slow nod. I will. She left him then, her cloak swirling in damp breeze, and he watched until she vanished among tents. In that moment he realized how deeply the lines between them had blurred. Enemy and ally, stranger and wife. He felt both fortified and vulnerable in equal measure, as though wearing armor made of mirrors. Sister to the Kingslayer, some still muttered. Mother of the boy king who ordered shadows. Bedmate of the wolf who breaks vows. Robb squared shoulders. Let them speak. Speak enough and words would grow dull, while deeds gleamed sharp. In a rookery of King's Landing, Grand Maester Pycelle's new apprentice broke seal after seal, stacking messages like firewood. Each carried tidings of the North Stride, of Stannis' fleet, of Tyrell grain shipments crossing the Mander, of wildfire stores checked twice weekly by order of Ser Orain Waters. Pycelle's beard trembled as he pondered which reports to bring before Joffrey. King yet boy, unpredictable, now bereft of his mother's daily counsel. Varys slid through the door wearing concern like a second robe. Such bustle, Grand Maester. Ravens hardly keep their feathers these days. Pycelle harumphed. War breeds letters like rats breed fleas. Information, though, feeds cats. Varys smiled. And the realm starves for calm. Tell me, does the young king sleep well? Not since news of his mother's northern entanglement. Pycelle wrung his hands. He shouts for her return, yet cannot be seen to defy grandfather. Varys cooed. A lion cub trapped between two larger lions. Dangerous. Best guide him gently. Pycelle's eyes narrowed. Guide him? You? Humble whispers only. Varys inclined his head. Speaking of whispers, rumor says Lady Sansa Stark may soon be wed to Ser Lyn Corbray to ensure Vale allegiance. Pycelle stroked beard. Marriage to a Vale sword? A sop at best. We must hold the north through Chew. Een Cersei's womb. Ah, but whose claim will that babe uphold? Baratheon, Lannister, or Stark? Varys's smile was thin. Lines blur. Old friend. Even on royal parchments. He drifted out, leaving Pycelle clutching his scrolls. Lines indeed blurred, even on Permareth vellum under imported inks. And in blurred lines, destinies reshaped. As Robb's host pushed past Moat Cailin toward Winterfell's broken walls, a final raven from the wall arrived. Jon's terse update spoke of red priests sighted among wildling camps, of dead things in the woods that did not stay dead, of a cold so deep torches sputtered blue. There was a plea not couched but stark. Send men. Any men. Soon. Robb called a halt beside the ruins of Little Queen's Crown. Fires crackled in the shells of hovels. Beneath a half-collapsed stable roof, he spread Jon's letter on a barrel. Snow ticks hopped across ink. Cersei stood close, breath steaming. We cannot march farther north, she said, reading the lines again. Winterfell first, or else your lord's desert. But you can spare scouts. 300 riders, perhaps. He shook his head. The wall devours hundreds like mouth of winter. I would send 1,000. 2 if I had them. We may yet, she said, pointing at a map. If Manderly's levy meets us at White Harbor, we gain ships to ferry fresh men. And Tyrell grain to feed them. Robb traced the coast. A bold gamble. White Harbor stands exposed. Gamble now, she replied. Or pay later in bodies. He met her eyes, saw the calculation there, but also conviction. Very well. I send ravens tonight. Gray wind pawed the snow, whined toward the dark north. Robb placed a hand on warm fur. We go home first, old friend. Then we guard the wall. The wolf quieted. Somewhere beyond the treeline a horn blew, 3 short blasts. Scouts returning. Silhouettes emerged, leading a bedraggled prisoner bound and frozen near death. Robb strode to meet them. Cersei followed. The prisoner's beard iced his chest, but his eyes burned fever-bright. He spat blood, croaked, King beyond the wall marches. 10,000, maybe more. We outran shadows with eyes like blue stars. They follow the lion banner. Robb's blood chilled. The banner? Describe. A lion devouring wolf, black on black. The man sagged, led by pale man with flayed man cloak. Said Bolton name. Cersei sucked breath. Robb's jaw clenched. He looked to his queen. Your father called this peace. She answered flat. My father underestimates ghosts who wear men's skin. Robb turned to Roose Bolton riding up, cloak pristine scarlet. In the wan light, his pale eyes glittered unblinking. Lord Bolton, Robb called. It seems you're bastard allies with wildlings under false banners. Explain. Bolton inclined his head just so. My bastard allies with himself, your grace. He is an unpredictable youth. Give me leave to ride north, and I shall leash him. Robb's hand dropped to sword hilt. And if the leash breaks again? Bolton's thin smile was knife cool. Then perhaps it will wrap about his throat instead. Cersei watched, senses whetted. She knew now. The North's greatest threat wore friendly colors and polite words. She moved closer to Robb, shoulder to shoulder, matching Bolton's gaze. Then ride, Robb commanded. Take 200. Bring him back. Or bring his head. Bolton bowed. As you decree. He wheeled his horse, banners snapping. Cersei tracked him until fog swallowed crimson. Only then did she release breath held tight. Robb turned to her. "We fight on two fronts. Every throne is fought on all fronts," she murmured. "But some allies stand closer than foes." He studied her a long moment, then said quietly, "Stand close, then." She stepped into the circle of his arms, felt the weight of a realm settle across their interlinked armor. Above them snowflakes spiraled in silent orbits, each unique, each doomed to melt. Yet together they fell thick enough to blanket fields, bury bodies, feed rivers. Together they formed winter's cloak that would smother or save the realm depending on how the king and queen beneath it held fast, or shattered apart. And so the march continued, deeper into cold, deeper into the uncertain lattice of alliance and betrayal. Each heartbeat another step along a knife-edge path where wolves and lions dared tread side by side. For now, a faint aurora shimmered over the sky like silk spun from moonstone, glowing green and violet above the snow-hushed columns of pine that ringed the King's Road. No horn sounded, no raven croaked. Yet every man in the stark column felt it, some tightening in the air, a breath drawn and held by the gods themselves. Around spluttering watchfires, spearmen paused mid-chew while the sparks drifted upward in dizzy spirals to meet the wavering lights. Only Robb rode on, torch in hand, gray wind loping in steady silence at his left stirrup. They were 2 days from Winterfell now, and the ruins of Queen's Crown lay behind them like a half-remembered wound. Every night since Moat Cailin, scouts had vanished. Singular men at first, then an entire 6-rider outrider knot, leaving nothing but churned snow and the faint, coppery stink of blood that lingered till dawn. Roose Bolton's sworn hillsmen claimed ice wights pulled them underground. Frey outriders swore to iron-born ghosts. Yet Robb saw the frayed edges of a single tapestry. One thread led every trail east, toward shadowed lakes where knives whispered in the dark. And that thread spelled Ramsay. Cersei felt the tension like a harp string tuned too high. She wore boiled leather riding armor trimmed with frost-stiff wolf fur, her hair hidden beneath a plain gray hood, no lion's mane for arrows to seek in dim light. Maester Vyman had told her tales of the long night, of maidens who walked between weirwoods and never came out again, of children of the forest who wove dreams into men's souls until they woke years later under different names. She half believed such stories now. A lioness was nothing but a single heartbeat of warmth in this frozen immensity. The cold chewed all flesh down to the same bleached bone. She nudged her mare up beside her husband. "If we push through the night, we reach the ruins by dawn," she murmured. "Better to arrive before full daylight blinds your archers." Robb's eyes did not leave the darkness ahead. "And before whatever hunts us gathers all its nerves." He raised a hand. The van halted. Torches bobbed like embers on a wind-blown field as captains rode forward. Great John Umber, Wyman Manderly's bastard Ser Wylis, Galbart Glover, and last of all, Roose Bolton in his thick crimson cloak. "Circle wagons," Robb ordered. "No fires beyond the inner ring. Maester Vyman, heal who you can, but keep the wounded inside the pikes, Lord Bolton. Set your archers along the south slope. We hold until first light." Bolton's face gleamed bloodless in the torch glare. "We? Your Grace intends to stand afoot." Robb swung down from the courser. "A king's place is with his men." Bolton dipped his gray head. "As you command." Cersei caught the flicker of something behind those pale eyes. Displeasure? Calculation? But the Lord was already wheeling his gelding away, snow crackling beneath shod hooves. She tugged Robb's sleeve. "Sleep 3 hours at least. Wolves run, but kings rule. They must keep wits sharper than steel." He studied her, weary yet warm. "Will you sleep if I do?" "An hour. Enough to keep my blade straight." She managed a thin smile. "Then I'll wake you." He wanted to protest. Instead he pressed his forehead to hers, shielded from the torch fire by the raised collars of their cloaks. "Watch the shadows," he whispered. "They grow teeth in this country." "Teeth break," she breathed back, "when they bite gold." 3 hours later, teeth indeed found flesh. The attack began as a single whistle, too high for most to notice above the groan of winter pines. yet Grey Wind's ears pricked. The dire wolf leapt from Robb's slumbering side and bounded into the blackness just as the first shaft hissed into the wagon circle, thunking deep into a cartwheel. Men jerked awake, shields snatched, mauls lifted. Another whistle and the night exploded. From every tree line poured figures, some armored in mismatched black mail, some bare-chested and painted with gore, some cloaked in flayed man's sigils sewn over ragged furs. Torches thrown high arced down in fountains of sparks, sizzling out where they hit thick snow. Yet one landed upon a cart laden with fry barley and flame-flowered. Bolton's hillsmen loosed arrows in disciplined ripples. Umber's great axes thundered out to meet the charge. Robb buckled cuirass while Cersei slashed free of her tent flap, long sword in one fist, dagger in the other. She saw Bolton on the flank, notching arrow after arrow with uncanny calm, and beyond him, a pale rider urging men forward with a flayed man banner strapped to his spear. The moon caught the rider's grin. Ramsay. "Bolton's bastard," she shouted. Robb was already in the saddle, sword shining. "Hold the left. With me!" They crashed into the melee like twin points of a spear. Robb cut a path toward Ramsay, Grey Wind a shadow at his heels, ripping out throats left and right. Cersei parried a howling clansman, riposted into his gut, tore loose, ducked a mace, stabbed upward through a bearded jaw. Blood steamed on her cheeks, hot against the crackle of frost. Closer now. Ramsay turned, eyes wild at the sight of dire wolf and lioness twin charging. He spurred his destrier, wheeled abruptly toward the treeline, but Bolton's men parted, forming a living corridor for their lord's bastard. The double betrayal snapped Robb's final restraint. He roared, urging his courser forward, cleaving an axeman's shoulder to hip. Arrows whined past him. Friendly? Enemy? He no longer cared. Only Ramsay's sneer ahead, bright as a torch. Then Grey Wind leapt, jaws clamping on the destrier's flank. Horse shrieked, toppled. Ramsay tumbled into snow. Robb reined up in a blaze of churned white. The bastard rose, one hand dangling where a wolf bite had crushed bone, the other clutching a long dagger. "Kingslayer's whore," he rasped at Cersei, who stalked behind Robb, blade crimson. "Wolf pup's bitch. Wrong Lannister, wrong wolf," she hissed and flung her dagger. It buried to the hilt in his thigh. Ramsay screamed, stumbled, and Robb's sword took his hand at the wrist. Snow erupted red. "Yield," Robb said, voice shaking with fury, "and stand trial." Ramsay spat blood, laughing. "Bolton yields only to winter," Arrowfire answered. A shaft punctured his chest. Loosed, Cersei realized, from the southern ridge where Bolton's archers stood. Another arrow, then a third. Ramsay toppled backward, dead before his head hit the snow. Across the slope, Roose Bolton lowered his bow with glacial composure. Their eyes met. Robb's outrage flared, but before he could shout, a horn sounded thrice. Bolton's surviving men fell back, shields raised in perfect withdrawal. They melted into forest, leaving their dead like discarded cloaks. Silence crept in, broken only by groans of the wounded and the crackle of burning grain. Dawn's first pallor grayed the sky. Cersei wiped gore from her cheek. "Your lord just slew his own son." Robb dismounted slowly. "His excuse will be mercy, to spare us further bloodshed. Will you hang him for treason?" Robb stared at the corpse that had been Ramsay. "First I will bury our dead. Then I will weigh justice." Grey Wind sniffed Ramsay's body, growled low, yet when Robb called, the wolf obeyed, lumbering to his side. Camp healers trudged through drifts, dragging stretchers. Fires sputtered out, and the aurora faded, as though ashamed of all it had witnessed. By mid-morning, the battered host limped through the rag-and-bone remains of the Wolfwood. Winterfell's outer sentry towers, broken teeth of dark stone, peaked above the horizon. A shiver ran across the line of march, like a string plucked along every spine. Home, at last, even in ruin. But smoke spiraled there, fresh smoke. Robb ordered a canter. Horses splashed slush. Men tightened straps. Archers knocked. The main gate loomed, one half burned, the other ripped away. Inside the curtain, blackened timbers pierced heaps of half-melted snow. Yet amid ash and toppled towers stood 3 new banners, lion-wolf entwined, flanked by twin red hearts crowned by 7 pointed stars. Cersei hissed, "The Faith!" Septon Maribald emerged from the gatehouse, flanked by armed sparrows in boiled leather jerkins. At their center, dainty and pale as first snowfall, stood Queen Myrcella Baratheon, golden hair braided, gray cloak pinning a circlet of dark steel shaped like dire wolf heads. Cersei gasped, "Myrcella!" She kicked her mare forward. Sparrows leveled spears, but Myrcella waved them down and ran to meet her mother. They embraced, clinging tight. "How?" Cersei whispered against her daughter's hair. "I sent for you in spring, not winter. Grandfather's envoys came," Myrcella said, voice trembling with relief. "Told me you were queen in the north. I could not wait." Nearby, Jaime dismounted, hair damp with frost. He bowed to Robb. "I escorted her. The city is a viper's nest. Safer here, if such a word still lives." Robb managed a thin smile.
Welcome, Sir Jaime.
"You find us between storms." Jaime's green eyes flicked to Bolton's vacant place in the column. "So I hear." Septon Maribald inclined his bald head. "In Queen Cersei's absence, we tended to the burned. We sealed crypts against looters. She stands queen here by both faith and kingly decree." Robb observed the hastily mended walls, the sparrows patching fissures with sap-mixed mortar. They'd worked hard. For the first time since leaving Riverrun, hope stirred, fragile but stubborn. "Winterfell stands again," he said. "And so do we." That night torches danced along the great hall's soot-black rafters. The ceiling gaped in places, showing stars, but tables were set. Fires roared in half-repaired hearths. Bread rose in new ovens. Robb took the high seat once reserved for his father. Cersei sat to his right, Myrcella at her knee, Tommen beside his sister, cheeks flush with cold. Across from them sat Catelyn, Jaime, and a white-bearded Septon who blessed each dish with solemn humility. When the first course cleared, Robb rose, cup raised. Winterfell burned. He began, voice carrying over the hush. Yet men and women of every house gathered to lift its stones again. Sparrows, Lannisters, northern craftsmen, even what wildlings dared cross the river to trade tools for grain. Let the realm hear. This castle is not only Stark, nor Lion, nor Septon. It is a holding of every soul that seeks shelter from the night. Murmurs of approval rippled, some grudging, some heartfelt. Lights glinted on Bolton's empty chair, conspicuous at the Karstark end of the dais. Cersei rose next. "My children walked through charred archways today, yet found hearths warming anew. We are all children before winter's fury. Let our banners hang together. Dire wolf, lion, crowned stag, even 7-pointed star, for only together do they shiver less." Applause, scattered but swelling. Great John Umber slammed fists to table. Wyman Manderly roared for more ale. Galbart Glover nodded curt respect. Jaime met Robb's gaze, raised his own goblet. Whatever ghosts haunted the twins, tonight they seemed to share single purpose: to guard those golden-haired cubs against endless winter. Above, in the tallest still-standing tower, Bran Stark watched from the shadows of the Broken Maester's rookery. Hodder had carried him through secret ways, collapsed stairwells, half-burnt corridors, until they perched by shattered stone, hidden behind a drift of forgotten ravens' nests. Bran's sight, vaster now than mere eyes, followed mother, brother, queen, foes. He felt their steps tremble the old castle's bones. He felt the knot of alliances tug and retie in new shapes. Beside him, the three-eyed crow whispered without moving beak or feather. One path ends. One flame dies. One song begins anew, when ice weds fire beneath the shattered moon. Bran shivered in Hodder's embrace, though the wind could not reach him. Days passed, busy and brittle. Builders clanged from dawn to dusk. Ravens winged out by scores. Messages to White Harbor, to Pike, to the twins, to the wall. Jon's next letter reached them atop fresh blizzard wind. The dead walked in dozens now. One bore the face of a Karstark scout last seen near Queenscrown. Giants' drums echoed from the Frostfangs. The watch would not hold till spring. Robb gathered counsel in what had once been the library, shelves now blackened but upright. 3,000 men I can spare, he said. Any more and the bar Rollins will revolt come sowing. Jaime leaned against a half-scorched pillar. The city can dispatch cell sails, but Lannister gold diminishes while father rebuilds King's Landing's walls. And Joffrey's crown sits uneasy, the Tyrell coffers close begrudgingly. Yet close they must not, Cersei said. She laid a parchment on the table. A trade pledge from Highgarden, grain north in exchange for Stark furs and promise of marriage between Lady Arya, if found alive, and Willis Tyrell. They want hostages of peace. Robb bristled. Arya is no token. Cersei met his anger. Then send another. A ward who binds camps. Myrcella, Jaime snarled. Absolutely not. Cersei's voice cooled to steel. She would rule Highgarden before a storm's turn. Few could outmaneuver her. Jaime's green eyes blazed. She's a child. Children stop no winters. Cersei's jaw set. But I will not decide without her will. Robb stepped between them, palms raised. Enough. We solve one blizzard at a time. He unfurled a second map of the wall of Eastwatch and the Shadow Tower. Stannis sails up the narrow sea. If my sister's ravens speak true, he will strike Eastwatch first. We must meet him there, on the wall, not at its gates. 3 armies. Mine, Stannis's, and the dead. If even 2 fight together, the 3rd falls. Jaime exhaled. So you'll parley with Stannis? Or die trying, Robb said. Better the realm bury 1 king and keep the other 2 than see all burned. Cersei squeezed his hand beneath the table. Then we ride. On the night before departure, the sky split with red lightning, a crack that rippled east to west. From Winterfell's battlements, watchers gasped as the streak blossomed into a fiery comet tailing sparks of emerald and violet. Bran, drifting in a vision high above the castle, saw another vision overlay it. A dragon's jaw of molten glass descending upon an army of snow-armored wights, scattering them like chaff. He tasted hot ash in his throat and woke crying out that the world was burning. Maester Vyman called it omen. Septon Maribald called it dawn fire, an illusion of moonlight bending through ice crystals. But Cersei recalled a different red comet years ago, heralding Daenerys' hatchlings. She turned inward, sensing scales beating against the world's shell. Daenerys, far across the narrow sea, felt it too. On the deck of the Stormcrown, the first of her new fleet, she gazed at that sky-rending blaze and smiled. It is time, she told her Khalasar. Ready the sails. She pointed west, over the edge of the known seas, toward twin kingdoms now sewn together in threadbare peace. Drogon spread his wings and screamed, echoing the comet's roar. Morning. Winterfell's gates yawned open to spit forth riders in dark columns. At their head, Robb Stark wore a cloak of Shadowcat, crown of weirwood hammered to silver. Beside him, Cersei donned matte gray plate chased with scaled lion filigree, hair boo. ND in single braid. Myrcella rode behind them with the Sparrow's blessing, Jaime at her left, Tommen at her right. 2 cubs between white-cloaked knight and grim spears. The banners whipped, direwolf and lion entwined, crowned stag with shattered antlers, Stannis' victory skewered, 7-pointed star between 2 swords, the Faith's crusade, and newest of all, a direwolf rampant over a bed of golden roses, promise to Highgarden. As hooves thundered over fresh-fallen snow, Bran watched from the broken tower slit. He felt the old stones whisper, snow falls, fire rises. He closed his eyes, sent his mind soaring north beyond the standing armies, beyond the blue-eyed corpses marching, beyond even the wall, seeking the heart of all storms. At Dreadfort, Roose Bolton read a raven's report. Bastard killed, army repelled, Stark hosts marching to wall. He burned it in an iron brazier and penned 2 lines to King's Landing. The north bleeds. Send Tyrell gold by secret road. My cloak turns with better wind. Then he penned another to Mance Raider. South gates open once the wolf departs. March swift, and snow will hide your tracks. He sealed each with wax, one crimson, one blank. Which would reach hands first, he cared not. Chaos, after all, served only the patient. On the King's Road's frozen rut, Robb slowed as Winterfell faded behind the pines. He turned in his saddle. Cersei followed his gaze. From this ridge, the castle looked small, a child's toy dwarfed by blank distance. Will it stand without us? She asked. It must, he said, like a candle left to guide us home. Gray wind lifted his muzzle skyward and howled, long and low, a note that carried over ice and forest and ruin. The riders behind fell quiet, hearts pulled by that mournful sound. Cersei drew her sword, raised it so steel caught dawnlight. Robb raised his. Myrcella, bold, mirrored them. 1,000 blades followed. Metal chimed a single ringing chord that echoed off stone and sky. Then they turned north, into wind as sharp as shattered glass, carrying within that chord a promise. When ice meets fire on the wall, the song born from wolf and lion would decide whether dawn ever came again.